Welcome back to Brothers of the Arcana. As always, I am Alex Aldea.
I am co-host Dave Ferrigno, and today we're going to get tit-faced.
Absolutely tit-faced.
Our guest, Lauren Farrell.
Yes.
Hey,
Thank you
guys.
for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And as you can see, we're all juicy titted up, as you can see. And I thought about this on the way. Can we call it titsy instead of tipsy?
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I have friends that at happy hour say it's tea time instead of happy hour.
Yes. And why are we making all these boob jokes? Because we have Jooicy Tits Vodka, which is Lauren's special vodka. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks
And-
for having me.
Lauren knows nothing about the show.
So she knows nothing about the show, but
She was made for the show.
she's
because
made
she
for the
is-
show.
She's
Absolutely.
a natural skeptic and loves a good conspiracy theory. So that's sort of what we talk about, deal with, try to figure out, and debate.
I love
So
it.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
other
all the-
aspect to this is Alex and I decided, since Lauren is our first guest that's a woman.
the first female type lady on the show.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We figured we'd get a little classed up today.
We did.
Yeah.
Got all
we're in the,
gussied up for her.
Looking good,
Absolutely.
guys.
I haven't shaved, which makes me look fatter. You're welcome.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's great. And Dave has a purple necktie. So as far as you guys know,
It's actually green, but
it's actually green, but it messes with the green screen.
Yeah.
So Christian made it purple, who's our producer, which is awesome. We got a new backdrop. How do you like the? Yeah. So you're welcome on that front too.
beam me up, Scotty.
Oh, so good. So we got our coffees and we're ready to go. So you want to start us off, Dave, since you have a previous relationship with Miss Lauren and
Yeah, so
you know everything about her?
I wouldn't say that, but okay. We've been fast friends, but
Awesome.
so yeah, Lauren, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on Jooicy? Like, because I know when in a previous life when we used to know each other, I know you had LFNY, your game day bags, and that was a very successful venture that you had going. And then,
Ooh.
what was your transition to Jooicy and getting tip-faced here?
So pretty cool. I actually love that we're in Bellworks because this is part of where I had my physical presence of a retail store for my handbag brand,
Oh, wow.
but
Okay.
also the time to finally go ahead and work on bringing Jooicy to life and start to research how do we create a vodka brand. And basically, it started as a joke in college many years before. I took my first shot of Fireball, and it tasted like Big Red gum. And growing up, my grandpa always
Big
had
red gum? Yeah,
Yes.
you're 100%
Yep.
right.
cinnamon, little heat. So
Mhm.
take my shot of Fireball, and I said, "Wow, holy shit, this tastes like Big Red gum." They need the opposite of Fireball, and just to play on words, play on opposites, I said they need the opposite, Jooicy Tits. And I was with a group of people. They said, "Wait, that's a great name. That's a
Great
really great name." And then in the coming days, I took pen to paper and I realized how I could spell it. Jooicy. The O is the little boobies. And basically, I was like, "Wait, this is kind of cute." And then I market tested it as a joke for 8 years. Went up to groups of men, groups of women,
Mhm.
bartenders, always pretended like it was real. The ears
Wow.
perked up. They wanted cases to work for me by t-shirts. So it got to the point where I said, I have to figure out how to do this because the feedback's too positive not to.
Mhm.
And vodka was what I personally drank at the time. I still do.
Okay.
And in terms of spirits, it's the most scalable, most profitable, easiest to produce of all the spirits. So I said, that's a good starting point. Let's start there. And then we can always branch out as things progress. So right now we're on our third year of business. We are operating in Florida as well as New Jersey. And then our distributor in Florida ships direct to consumer in 47 states across the nation. So
That's
Awesome.
incredible.
thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Let's get you to position a little bit more this way so people can see your pretty face rather than looking at our ugly mugs. And there you go. And a little bit of brand awareness is perfect. So as far as that goes, that's incredible. So you seem to be a born marketer.
I love it. I think
Okay.
it's fairly natural. I always have the thought process of how can it be done better? Why is it done this way? How is it made that way?
Mhm.
But particularly, like you said, when it comes to the marketing branding aspect of entrepreneurship, I think it's where I personally love it. And I love when you get in that flow of the ideas just starting to go and then it's nonstop. And it's the most fun kind of part of the process, in my opinion.
It's so much fun. I mean, our big new marketing tactic is we have a QR code. that I have on the back of my phone, and I assault people as I walk by. Hey, do you know about our show? Because you should be checking us out. But yeah, I did that at Masonic Week when I was down there for all of last week. So that was quite a nice endeavor, and able to then get out and have some more people watch the show. So,
and then he sends me a screenshot of that, and it was like, or it was actually a picture, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Here, put this QR code everywhere." I'm like, "Do you have a digital copy?" No. He's like, "Can't you use that one?"
I don't know how to do a digital
my own.
copy. Yeah,
It's fine.
I don't know. He's better at this stuff than I am. Especially that's why he does all the editing.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, and I just talk 90% of the time on the show. So
That's true. He never shuts up.
he's our front room, back room guy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
got the face for radio, so
That's right, Christian.
But so
The choke on your chicken wings over there.
we beat our producer choked to death over here. Sorry, guys. It's like,
So we our show typically and strangely and awesomely is about aliens and ancient apocalypses, Atlantis, masonry, all kinds of stuff that goes boo in the night, psychics, cryptids, all kinds of other things. Oh, I heard an awesome story, by the way, about 3 Templar knights called the Forsaken, and they were actually either excommunicated for being sorcerers, or they were actually somewhat taken over and possessed by demons, and it was like evil fighting evil, where they would work on behalf of the Catholic Church, or they were like enslaved to the Catholic Church somehow, and they would like fight evil or other things like that. I was like,
Pretty
that's a cool
wild.
story.
Huh.
I saw that on Instagram the other day. I was like, all right, get down with that, Templars and stuff. So do you have any interest at all in anything that we talk about on the show?
Yes, of course. Because I know, obviously, Dave from back in the day.
Yeah,
had some ghost. What was
Yeah.
the name? I'm blanking on the name right now, but I know.
we had that was the Revolutionary Paranormal
Yes.
Society.
Yep.
And then we also had later Ghost Seekers International. But one thing I was going to say, so Lauren and I met through a mutual friend years ago, who's actually a medium. Alex is also friends with her at this point as well.
She'll be on the
But,
show. We're going to get her on the show.
we
Yeah.
definitely need to get her on the
She's
show.
been
at
busy
some
and we've
point.
been busy, but yeah, absolutely.
But, before we digress to that, I think we should also talk about Lauren's background a little bit. So, obviously you've worked, I think if I remember correctly, was it Louis Vuitton where you worked in college?
I was like Gucci.
Gucci, sorry.
Gucci's nice.
I knew it was one of the designers.
Gucci, Fendi,
And then
all the good
You've also
stuff.
worked in the construction industry a little bit with
Yep.
POE LED lighting and such.
Yep.
And so what drove you as an entrepreneur? Because clearly you've had that entrepreneurial spirit throughout your life, it sounds like. I know in college, that patent you also have that you still haven't introduced to the
I
market.
do.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, she's quite a businesswoman. And
Oh.
I was going to say, from that perspective, where would you say, what drives you from an entrepreneurial perspective? And also, what challenges have you faced, because being a woman in the industry, I'm not saying that doesn't diminish anything, but clearly there's a lot of nuances sometimes with that sort of thing, right?
Sure. So I would say you covered it well, that I graduated from college, went to Gucci and attempted a perm role that never came to its permanency, but it was awesome because I was supporting director of store operations. So right out the gate, as someone who wanted to get into fashion, you were at a top 3 powerhouse brand with the highest up possible people at the table. And so it was a great learning experience. And on the back burner was actually this idea that I had patented, and it's called the cufflet. It was a wrist wallet in which you could carry your essentials on your wrist in a functional but still fashion forward way. And that was born out of need in college, very much practicing what they preached in terms of it comes from a personal need. It's a personal pain point. It's how you're going to kind of come up with something. So that was on the back burner. Gucci was not coming to fruition on the timeline that they were promising. And it was actually a best friend at the time. Her friend got hit and run over by a taxi cab right after her 22nd birthday. And she had just turned 22, had job offers from big banks. The world was her oyster. And like that, it changed. And I remember in that moment saying, this could have been any one of us out at any night. And we brought flowers to where she had passed. And I just said, that's it. I have to follow, this calling inside of something that's my own. And it was so hard to walk away from something, you know, like a Gucci when you
A
want to
done
get
deal.
into
Yeah, of course, of
fashion.
course.
But I had this calling, and to put it in that perspective, you know, it took something like that to really make me take the plunge and leave Gucci and dive into the cuff full time. So when I was working on the cuff, I started to ask people, where would you see yourself using this? And the 10th or 11th person said game day in stadiums. I said, game day in stadiums. All right, let me do a little research here. So I started to Google game day handbags, game day, you know, how do you carry your accessories on game day? Just basic Google searches, and realized there were strict rules on the types of bags women could take into sports stadiums. And on top of that, none of them were geared at the female fan who liked fashion. So I did a pivot away from the cufflet and launched a line of game day handbags because it was this white space in the world of fashion and sports that had yet to be met. So I launched a line there, and then progressed into doing other bags as well. Had physical retail locations, and then COVID hit. So physical retail closed up. There was a gentleman at the time. I had done a little trunk show at his office. He was in construction, and he happened to meet a BD girl in the height of COVID. And he said, oh gosh, construction, it's the opposite of fashion and all the other things you're trying to do. But I was very fortunate in that he was a big proponent of the handbags. He was a big proponent of Jooicy. And he was someone who just got it and let me kind of have the best of every world. So BD in construction, you're playing golf, you're whining and dining to people, you're having the best time.
Absolutely awesome.
So
right?
when you say male dominated, that's totally a comfort zone for me. I had two brothers. I managed the men's lacrosse team for fun in college. You know, it was in the construction industry, so to speak. So total comfortability when it comes to that world. And I think something that's, you know, definitely helped in terms of not breaking the barriers, but having that comfortability as you're knocking on doors with Jooicy Tits now. It is male dominated, especially as you scale. One day you'll ultimately engage with one of the larger distributors. And it's funny because you'll meet reps out or salespeople all the time. And a lot of times they kind of like knock the product a little bit. So
Really?
they do, because I think people think it's not a premium vodka, which it is. It's super smooth. It's gluten-free. It holds its own against your Kettles, your Tito's, your Grey Gooses of the world.
I like Tito's. Not a fan of Tito's.
Not a fan.
Because it's corn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it weirdly enough, it has at least for me, it has a weird effect. What's that made from?
Juicy's corn as well.
Is it?
So
Okay.
it's a little sweet on the finish, but if you tried this next to Tito's, I guarantee you're picking this over Tito's.
I just think Tito's is not well made, but that's just my opinion. But
and
of course, if you guys want to sponsor the show, you're very welcome to.
Yeah, because
but
that just
outside of that-
really helped our plug.
Well, listen. Well, I do like Ciroc. I mean, that's now that dude's in
Speaking
jail.
of conspiracy
So,
theories,
Speaking of
Yeah.
conspiracy theories, it's made of people. Yeah, but it's
Oh God,
I don't know. Whatever.
he's gone off the rails.
it's made of grapes.
Get off the. It's
Yes,
made of grapes. Actually,
grapes, exactly.
Exactly. I like potato vodka. She's like moving on.
No, it's honestly, it's like wine. It's like anything else. Everyone
Yeah.
has their own palate.
Right.
The thing with vodka is you're not like a vodka snob like you are a whiskey snob or a wine snob tasting the notes of XYZ. Typically, you're mixing it. Your average person, unless they're enjoying a martini, is mixing it.
Which I do. And I like a little, how does it work with like just a little olive juice? And
Delicious.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Delicious.
It's awesome.
Yeah, you got to check out Lauren's Instagram and Facebook. She's got plenty of great recipes and other fun things on there. So
Absolutely. So I used to be a professional bartender,
Awesome.
among other things. So yeah, that was, that's.
jack of all trades.
Yeah. Yeah. Master of none, clearly. So, yeah. That's fantastic. So we should break that out and try some.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
we're ready to get tit faced.
Tit faced.
And one other important piece of the brand, while we're here, we like to say we party for a purpose because a portion of our proceeds from vodka and merch sales goes to different breast cancer charities.
I knew that. That's such a smart idea.
Yep.
Such a smart idea.
So I knew I always wanted to give back to something. It was just I can do it open. It was can't open my own now.
All right,
Thank you. How handy.
no stabbing people.
Oh, that's sharp.
it would defeat the purpose if it weren't.
Are we busting out weapons here?
No,
Okay.
just it's a you know,
So how about
utilitarian knife.
would you like to try it straight room temperature first? That's what
Sure.
I recommend, or do you want to try it on a rock?
Well, let's try it room temperature first.
All right, perfect.
Russian style.
I like it.
And yeah.
Is that like how do the I'll do it straight up. It's fine. I can drink anything.
He hasn't had vodka in like a month and a half. We've been on the carnivore diet.
I haven't had any alcohol in a month.
Which is why I'm so thin. You could tell. I mean,
how is the carnivore diet going? I've seen a lot about that.
It's over for me.
Actually
now,
been
we're
awesome.
sort of getting back into it a little bit.
I love doing it.
Ooh,
I mean, eating steak and butter, like, how could you go wrong?
And lose
Bite
weight.
into the block.
Sometimes.
Well, so
Actually, one of our buddies sent us a video where he's just sitting there eating pieces of butter off the block, like, you know, a piece of chocolate. He's like, love butter.
Did you ever try butter bombs?
No.
So you take like ice forms, right, for the ice cube forms, and you caramelize the butter a little bit, and then you pour it into the ice forms, and then it melts. So you have like these sort of balls or whatever in the fridge, and then you just take a little piece of it, and it tastes like a sort of like a caramelly thing, but it's just butter. There's no sugar.
I love butter.
Yeah, what's not to love?
Well, here's to feeling good all the time. We probably shouldn't allow Alex to do the because he always comes up with the dirty ones.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's a lot of good toasts that you can have.
There are.
I like the toast to honor, but that's neither here nor there. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's a good one. That's nice and sweet.
That's the corn.
Very delicious.
Non-GMO corn, charcoal filtered. So there's that little bit of heat at the end. But again, everyone's palate's different, so it depends what you pick up.
Well, the heat comes just from the
Yep.
like, which isn't really nice. You're saying the charcoal filter does that?
Yep.
How so?
Honestly, I don't know the total technicality behind it because I'm not the master distiller, so to speak. You do what's called contract bottling. You go to the pre-existing distillery, bring your idea of what you want to create. So I said, I want a super smooth vodka that you can not need a chaser for. And so they do what they do. They present you different options, give your feedback, fine tune it from there, and then ultimately lock in on what you want to bring to market.
Now, did you go with corn because of the sweetness?
The sweetness, and then it's also, what was I going to say?
Is it more reasonably priced
It's
to
actually-
also come up with?
It's actually not.
Mm,
It's more so, it's the sweetness. And in fact,
got it.
non-GMO, it's the cleanest, pure form of the actual origin of the product, so to speak.
I bet you Tito's uses GMO vodka. Everybody GMO corn. Stop it, Tito's. Stop it.
Can we
keep doing
can we
it.
just stop bashing Tito's? Although
Drop the O, get the double O. That's what we like to say.
That's right. Get the double O.
amen. I will say delicious.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
super smooth.
Very, very smooth. Very
There's-
sweet. Very delicious.
There's no bad aftertaste. I don't have PTSD from my time in Poland
Good.
when I was laying on the floor because we had 22 bottles of vodka during dinner. So, you know.
Or at our friend Costin's 51st birthday, where he made us drink 18
God.
shots of brown liquor of various kinds.
I had 22 and then
22 in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
well, he did-
Then he called up his girlfriend
So-
and pretended to be some dude named
so
some
Joey
John-
Baklava.
Joey Baklava.
So he was our friend Costin, who's also
Don't
Romanian
ask.
like Alex. For
Yes.
his 51st birthday, he's like, guys,
Romania, very
It's-
strong.
I just want you to come over and do a tasting. He's like, we'll do a blind tasting the entire night. So he'd put out 4 different bourbons. He'd mixed in, I think, 2 or 3 scotches.
Yeah.
So we're just sitting there, and it was just like, you know, it wasn't like tiny pours. It was at least 2-ounce pours minimum.
Not for me. I had like a tiny, and I was still twisted as all get out.
All I could say is by the end of the evening, we had drank moonshine. I had 22 shots of bourbon, and I became Joey Baklava.
You did.
And
Did he have an accent?
Yeah. Well,
little
it was
bit.
sort of, yeah.
Preview? Is Joey here? Joey
Not yet.
Baklava in the house?
Joey
I
Baklava in the house?
Maybe
think-
a few more juicies. And Joey,
Yeah.
Oh,
in the
Joey will
house.
show up. Probably, you know what? Then he'll have to call his girlfriend again, and she won't appreciate it.
probably not. But
Yeah.
yeah, the biggest thing, you know, after that, it's like I literally had to call my mom to come pick me up. And
Yeah, it was a high school moment.
We
yeah,
got-
his
we got a
mom
ride-
picked us up and
we got
drove
to
us
ride
home.
home. Like it was like a 10-minute ride home. I passed out in the car. I was done.
Mom's the best. That's a good mom.
Get a skin, mom.
I was just toast. And yeah, the worst part was I think on like shot 19 we had
That's delicious.
George T. Stagg. So it's like a $1,200 bottle of bourbon. Like that was our 18th or 20th shot. I was just like, we should have probably had this first.
Yeah, we should have started with
wow.
the $1,000 bottle,
Yeah.
Definitely.
not
That's
the 27th shot.
But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you guys could get it, I highly recommend Jooicy because just tasting this, it's
Absolutely.
delicious. It's been a hot minute. I actually, I remember when you put up on Instagram, you were trying to get like bottles, like which design to go with. I remember actually communicating with you. I was just like, go with the bigger tits because it looks better.
Bigger tits. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
on it, I have to say. Yeah, absolutely.
And in case you're
Right, at least
not
so.
a boob guy, she's got a backside.
Right.
So
She sure does. She sure
Frankly,
does.
I'm not a boob guy, but I will say the vodka is delicious. So
thank you.
I like them all. I like the whole thing.
no discrimination.
No discrimination here. Absolutely. So, Lauren, what do you like in a good conspiracy theory? What floats your boat? Do you get political? Do you go more like ancient apocalypse kind of stuff? What do you like to chat about?
So I went down the rabbit hole at the beginning of COVID when all of the stuff with Hollywood was coming out.
Oh,
And
Uh-oh.
the pizza parties
Mhm.
and the trafficking and Wayfair. And that's the conspiracy theories that kind of piqued my interest at the time.
adrenochrome and
Adrenochrome.
yeah.
And you start to talk to people about it and they look at you like you're nuts. My little brother's like, get your tinfoil hat out. Like, what are you talking about? And then you learn more and more and you almost can't look at the world again the same way.
It's very hard. It's very hard. So what's happening with Doge these days and where they're sort of delving into is a very interesting topic, I'd say.
Yeah.
In a lot of respects. And listen, if this episode gets shadow banned, then so it be.
Well, at least at the very minimum, we could edit it so that Lauren could get her plug on Jooicy Tits Vodka, which
Absolutely.
I highly recommend. And,
Yes, 100%.
I'm sure one day when she sells a Diageo or something, it's like, we'll say we had her on.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
We
when
can
you-
talk about aliens.
When you get
too.
to celebrity
We can-
status, exactly.
Whatever you
God.
want.
So, all
Help
right.
us with our marketing. We need it.
Yeah, because clearly nobody's coming to our channel for our looks.
Speak for yourself. So with that in mind, yeah. Cryptids. You into that at all?
What are they?
Like
Fantastic.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
I feel like I'm talking to Brian Bowden.
Loch Ness?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
kinds of
I
cryptids.
just didn't know the proper term.
Cryptids, cryptozoology. It's Bowden thinks that there's some
he-
underground like canal that you could go between.
So I asked him, I go, do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster or Ogopogo? And he goes, they're the same thing. And I go, how is that possible? One's in Canada and one's in Scotland. And he goes, well, there's an underground tunnel that links the loch in Scotland with the lake in Canada. I go, I'm more likely to believe that there is a monster that he like summers in Scotland and winters in Canada, or the other way around,
Maybe he does.
where he's going in this underground thing, Hollow Earth,
Yeah.
the whole ish slee stacks, whatever. And that should be interesting.
I mean, the one thing that was interesting, so Brian, he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he's very well versed. He's actually encountered Bigfoot.
Okay.
He said there's about 10,000 big feet in the US
That's a lot of feet.
that
They're all big.
Yeah.
and he said they're interdimensional beings, which is why anytime somebody tries to photograph the thing, which we were joking about yesterday, he said because they're interdimensional, that's why there's this blurriness, which we were just like, so it wasn't the fact that there's like this 12-foot hairy monster like throwing rocks at you or something that maybe camera shake or whatever else. Just like, no, perfect
It's the
tripod.
interference
Yeah.
from the,
Yeah, he was saying it's the interference from the interdimensional.
Could be.
But if you look at and I know I'm going to butcher this, but the Tuatha De Danann, which is the original inhabitants of the Emerald Isle, before the Saxons got there and so on, they were like a fairy-like people.
Mhm.
And apparently they didn't want to fight. They didn't want to have it. So when this warlike tribe came, it said they turned into the raindrops and disappeared. And they're like, hey, deal with your own crap. We're out. So interdimensional, whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
it went to a different pocket dimension or something else and living out their peaceful existence there. It's possible.
Smart.
Yeah. So, and
Get
there's
out
a
of
fair
Dodge.
amount of that. Well, the whole idea of that, I think, is kind of cool. So if the big feet deal with that kind of thing, maybe that's a possibility.
Right.
What are you reading these days that's fascinating you?
Fascinating me. That's a good question. I'm such a big reader, and I usually read business books, but I've been going totally off the beaten path, reading, what did I just finish? The Wedding People, which I don't know that anyone has read. It was on Read with Jenna, recommended. It was all over TikTok. Everyone recommended it. Nothing happened. I was waiting for some big twist at the end, anything to make it.
Oh, I thought it was like one of those things, like it's one of those things like if you read this, you're going to get married kind of thing.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a story about a lady. We don't need to get into it. It's not even worth talking about. But it was all over and it fell flat. So don't read The Wedding People.
Don't read The Wedding People.
Talking about
don't drink Tito's. Don't read The Wedding People.
Well, there goes 2 sponsor opportunities.
Well, I sort of subscribe to the idea that Eric Cartman did, where like he bought the amusement park and he's just like, stay out of my park, dude. All right, this is my park. I don't need anybody going in there. And it was like, that was the biggest marketing technique ever, because everyone's like, no, I want to go in because I can't go in.
You know,
so, yes, exactly.
One thing I want to circle back on. So you mentioned before when you were in college, you felt this calling and you felt this pull, like this is the direction you should be going in. What would you say that was on your journey? You know,
that's a great question. I think it's almost like an intuition. I think very much so, as much as you have free will, I think that there's somewhat of a destiny or a plan for your life. Like the seeds are planted that you have an inclination to start a business or be in a band or whatever it is that's your talent or that you're meant to do in this life. And I think if you don't honor it, or if you're not in touch with yourself, there's so many people that they lead an unhappy, kind of unfulfilled life. But then you meet people who are in tune with themselves and knew since they were 4 years old that they wanted to be a musician or a ballerina or a business person. So I think it's just a self-awareness. And I think it's listening to yourself, because so many people are so afraid to take the risk or to trust themselves or listen to themselves.
100%.
Or even know that the little voice in their head is themselves. So I think it's a matter of
which one?
Right, the good one or the bad one.
Right.
That mean one. What a mother.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do anything where you just naturally that way, where you're comfortable with hearing that voice, or did you work at it to sort of figure out that voice? Or like, in other words, did you get at it through meditation or through breathing or any other modality that got you there?
I think speaking to entrepreneurship, I think I always was an entrepreneur. I just didn't know that was the word for it or what it was. I took the elective in college as an accident. I switched electives and I had a crush on one kid and he was in it. So I was like, oh, he's in that class. I'll take that class. And
it's a good reason to get it.
So I walked in the first day and I was like, holy moly, this is what I've always loved. It's the marriage of business and creativity. And it's what I've always done. I was the kid making jewelry and selling it at the end of my driveway because we lived across the street from an elementary school. So you had the traffic of, soccer game weekend traffic, selling lemonade all the time, making bracelets and selling them. I turned 11. I took the babysitter Red Cross certification class and printed flyers, and every single person in a 10-block radius of my house that showed a sign of having a kid got a flyer. And next thing you know, I had a network of 20 plus families I was babysitting for when I was 11 years old. So I think I always was that person. I just didn't know what it was until college. And then once I had kind of the roadmap of how to execute on an idea, that was it. That was the game changer.
That's amazing. So tomorrow I'm going to a meditative retreat, which I'll be at for 10 days.
Okay.
So I will be unheard of until the 23rd. It's now the 11th. So yeah. So I'm excited about that. No phones, no nothing, except for meditation for like 16 hours a day.
That's going to be
You
amazing.
can't talk to anybody. You can't do it. So I'm hoping that will get me to listen to my inner voice better.
Are you in tune with it a little bit now?
A little bit, I'd say, either through some of the psychedelic work or other stuff like that I've been a part of, or some meditation, some other things. Yeah. So, yeah. And, David and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time, that sort of riding the metaphysical vibe, getting on the idea, the vibration. And there was an idea of a woman asked, I don't remember her name, she asked AI, so an AI program, well, did we invent you, or did you invent us, or how does it work? And the AI said something very interesting. Said, in essence, I've always been here. You guys didn't invent us. You discovered us, because it's like the same idea as, like you discover is something, an idea whose time has come.
Mhm.
So the idea of vibration and that vibe just wasn't accessible before, but is now.
I
And
believe in
so,
that.
yeah,
Almost
Yeah.
like collective consciousness, like
Right.
as an earth, or as
Yeah.
this time that we're here as these beings, we're vibrating at that level where we're ready for that next step, good, bad, ugly.
Mhm.
exactly. And we're looking at, for instance, somebody's like, oh, well, I had that idea, but I didn't put it into practice, and somebody else. Yeah, because I think that idea's time has come. So if you don't put it out, someone else will put it out. It's just out there.
There's something else that says, I think it's 10 or 12 people at the same time have the same idea. And so it's kind of in the ethers. It's out there. It's who grabs it, who again kind of executes
so-
on it.
Yeah.
So like you're talking about when people have the same ideas for like patents or like ideas for inventions and things, right?
Exactly.
And all
Some-
across the world,
Yeah.
they're tapping into that consciousness or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Very possible.
But it's who makes the move on it.
Yes, we've kind of gone down the rabbit hole recently because one of our guests, Eric Matson, he's an astrophysicist. He worked for NASA on the James Webb Space Telescope. He's actually going down to Chile, I think it was, right? To work
I believe so. Yeah.
to work on the ELT, which is the extra large telescope
Extremely large.
or extremely large telescope.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, Eric, with his time in NASA, was kind of exposed to certain things, and he's just warped our minds when it comes to, because he can't tell
Yeah.
us things under his NDA, but he tries to explain things in such a way that we could try to derive what it is. And, some of the rabbit holes he's gone down, like he was even talking about the paranormal, and he's just like, yeah, ghosts are what you think they are. And it's just like, wait,
And he
what?
couldn't tell you more.
Not yet.
So we started talking about extraterrestrial beings, right? Because you're always talking about, well, aliens must be from another planet. And he goes, you're thinking about it wrong. They're extra dimensional. They're not extraterrestrial. So
Right.
that sort of gets at a whole other way of thinking about it. And he told us some things that, for instance, they said something like, they're not carbon based, they're silicon based.
Mhm.
And we can talk about it because we already talked about it on the show, but they don't have a double helix DNA, they have a triple helix.
Interesting.
And there's some interesting things. And so those are, these things get like drip fed out to the population over time.
Mhm.
I think with an idea of where they're desensitizing us to the idea that like sooner or later they're going to make an appearance. And by then we'll be, if not 100% comfortable with it, at least we're not like freaking out and burning the planet down because we're like,
Sure.
what is this?
Do they come in peace? Or they're already here. So are they here? in
So
peace?
I think they're here already.
he
I think
did
they've
say
been here for a while.
there's some benevolent ones. There's definitely some races of aliens, he said, that are not nice. And
Not nice. I met one during my psychedelic
Did you?
experiences. Yes, I met like a sort of a insecty one. That's like, hey, buddy, hey, which is kind of weird because he talked like he was like from Brooklyn, but he was like an insect. He's like, yo, buddy, how you doing? Let me get a pie.
It's
was
not
Joey
Joey
Baklava
Baklava.
there?
It's Joey Baklava. Joey Baklava as an insect in my psychedelic dream. So yeah. And he's just like, listen, you're having a dream of being on this planet. When you wake up, you're going to be strapped to an oar in one of our ships, and you're just going to be doing this for your whole life. And so is the rest of your human brethren. You guys are just a client race for us. We own your butts, and that's all there is ever going to be to it. And I was kind of freaked out by that. And I was talking to the guy who was running the whole psychedelic thing. And he goes, did you read The Way of the Shaman? And I said, I hadn't at that point, and I read the book after. And so something similar had happened to the guy. I forget his name now, but he was like Carlos Castaneda. You're familiar with,
familiar with that.
so Carlos Castaneda was a researcher. He was an anthropologist, and he went to the Yaqui Indians in Mexico and lived with them for a while. It's like the teachings of Don Juan and
Okay.
other stuff. I don't know if you've that rings a bell, or Journey to Ixtlan. There's a whole bunch of books that he wrote. He did peyote, So this guy was doing something else because he was down in Central America, not in Mexico. So some other, whether it was mushrooms or whatever the modality was to get there. And he had a similar thing to what I had, and it's in the book. And he didn't want to tell the shaman. And the shaman was like, after him, was like, tell us what you had. Because in their idea, that other place is real life and this is the dream. So you bring back what you learned and you share it with the tribe, and everybody's like better for it. So finally, he, after like a week or so, he shares with the shaman, and the shaman starts laughing. Goes, "Those guys are always saying stuff like that. They don't know anything. Like, there's much more important people in the universe than those guys. So like, they think they run everything. They don't run anything. So that made me feel better overall.
Good.
Yeah.
No, I think that's because sometimes if you have an experience or an interaction and you think you're alone in it, it helps to know that other people have had similar experiences. So
Absolutely. What about yourself? Any psychedelic journey?
I have not. No, the closest would be yoga, when you're kind of in that flow and that headspace where you're more open-minded, just more so in tune with, yourself than anything.
Absolutely. So a guy named Stanislav Graf, he did, forget the name of it right at the moment, but basically he was a big psychedelic researcher. And then when that became illegal, he started using drum beats. So shamanic drumming and stuff. And he found out that you could easily go into altered space with the drum beat, the rhythmic drum beat, and you don't need the psychedelics really. So it's just a modality for being able to get from point A to point B.
Why do you think they've restricted some of these modalities for us? Do you think they don't want that expansion, so to speak?
I do. And I think they've lost control of that recently. I think that too many people have. That's why I'm always like, I come from a communist country originally. And for me, I think it's one of these things where even the power structure as it is, they have their agenda, they have whatever they want to put out there. But behind it all, God still acts. And he's still the he, she, it, whatever you want to think of God as, has the ultimate say in how things get done. So, I don't know if you watched The Young Pope or The New Pope with Jude Law. Great series. Kind of, a little wokey, a little out there kind of thing. They go very in a particular way. However, and I still think, God used this for his own purposes. The message that's put out underneath that is, and what you can see is like the way that he prays and other things like that is really awesome. I don't know if it's what they were hoping for would be on, why they put it out, but it was there nonetheless.
Yep.
And it was very, very cool. So you can take it on a lot of different ways. I thought that was pretty cool. And that was pretty cool.
Gotta check it out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did something you wanted to? Nothing?
What? I get to talk now?
Yeah, you get to talk. More vodka?
Yes. Do you want a little red bikini?
What's that?
Vodka Fresca splash of cranberry juice.
Okay.
Sure, why not?
Would you like one too?
Yeah.
I just want to do a little.
She even brought ice. There you go.
That was amazing. Well prepared.
So, now the one thing I was going to ask you, so the New Jersey drones.
Oh, yes.
I assume you've seen them firsthand. So what is your take on it?
That's a good question. I think honestly, obviously our government at the time knew about it. They were not telling us for one reason or another. I'm not sure what that reason is. I don't know if they were in fact friendly is my pulse, and the fact something's in our airspace is uncomfortable. And then I saw different theories that there were other entities or beings keeping them from recording or spraying or interfering with some of what they were here to do. What I'm sure you guys know more. So what did know?
Interesting that there was there could have been some sort of conflict, let's say. I hadn't considered that really.
Almost spiritual warfare, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see, you're not going to know. And then I saw videos of people randomly around the country, loud, crazy booms at night. Where's this, what's happening? Like, you just don't know. And it's
just go on Ring and you see that like every minute of the day. It's just like, hey, I think I just heard an explosion or gunshots or whatever. It's just like.
And it's almost, I think it's obviously, you guys have enough of an open mind to know it could be something bigger and interdimensional. But
Right.
so many people are not used to that or not exposed to that type of a thought process yet. Like you said, for example, the gentleman at NASA, we're conditioned, they're slowly conditioning to us, but that's so uncomfortable and out of the box for your average person who's not aware yet.
Yeah. So what's interesting on that
Well,
front, we've had multiple, thank you. We've had multiple guests on, like even, we had a guest that's a remote viewer. He remote viewed the moon, and he worked with Ingo Swann, and other famous remote viewers. And he said he couldn't talk about what was on the moon, but he said if you saw what was there, it would scare the shit out of you.
Oh.
And Eric kind of alluded to on our last episode of 2024, he's like, the moon's not exactly what you think it is. And, we're just like, is it a portal or is it a gateway? Is it a wormhole? And
Won't be a lot of things.
what we kind of derived from it is maybe it's actually a portal to other dimensions or some kind of like jump. And he also mentioned with some of these UAPs that are submersibles and things, there's the ability for them, they're actually using water as a lubricant to go between interdimensional, or switching dimensions. In terms of the New Jersey drones, this is my understanding of it, and granted, I could be wrong. But from talking to a person that usually minds his own business,
As he usually does.
as he usually does,
Hey, Eric.
what he said was, as you probably know, there's the, what do you call it? The Naval Station Earl, right by Sandy
Yep.
Hook, right? So Naval Station Earl, there's the docks there. So there's cargo ships that go out there, and there's actually a train line. Thank you. So there's a train line that runs from Station Earl down to, I think it's McGuire, like Fort Dix kind of thing. So if you actually follow it on Google Maps or Google Earth, you'll see that once you get down, I think it's in McGuire, basically there's all these tunnels that go underground.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly what they do is those cargo ships, and hopefully I'm not giving away national security secrets here. We'll
If you
really
know
get-
about it. I'm sure
I'm
other
assuming
people
it's right, but whatever the case. So these cargo ships that are there docked, typically they'll take nuclear waste from the submarines, and they have all cases of nuclear waste, the nuclear warheads, things of that nature. They'll actually go out to sea, meet the submarines. They ingest the submarine like underneath the ship and bring it up into the ship, and they do these exchanges. Now, supposedly one of the cases that was on board this train went missing.
I had heard this.
So with that being said, I don't know if you've noticed, but since, even before the president-elect and now President Trump, he was supposed to come up to New Jersey that one weekend. He canceled his trip, and to my knowledge, I don't think he's been in New Jersey since. So there was a credible threat that they don't know if this nuclear waste, because what I was told is these cases are really cool, and they're probably about $115,000 a piece. So they don't know if somebody just took it home because they're like, oh, this is pretty badass. Like, let me take this home. Or if there was something nefarious about it.
Right.
Because it could be used for a dirty bomb or whatever
Yep.
else.
And I remember it
knows?
was something about you could only find them at night, which is why the drones were coming out at night. Whatever they're emitting can only be detected.
Well, yeah. So to that point, I think what I was told is essentially the drones are scanning. They're trying to look at the ambient temperature and also just doing a scan of the area back and forth. And they're triangulating that with also satellite data. So they're creating like a baseline. So they knew, all right, is there any kind of signatures in certain areas that they could go and investigate? And supposedly there was a truck on, I think it was Route 15 going north from like Cinnaminson or whatever down in South Jersey. They actually pulled it over. It was like 12 state troopers and the feds.
Wow.
And apparently the guy was shitting bricks, but he was actually going to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's with smoke detectors. But because smoke detectors have a little bit of radioactive isotope in them, it picked up a signature that it looked like, oh, it's like that might be the missing case. But, it's just, they searched the whole truck and turns out it was just smoke detectors. But if that's the case, I don't know. I mean, but the interesting thing is, as we know, President Trump usually comes to New Jersey a lot. Granted, nobody's playing golf right now at Trump National.
My old boss used to play with them
Yeah.
a lot.
Well, I saw
really?
he also
Yeah.
became
That's
the
interesting.
what is he, the ambassador to Ireland now?
Yep.
Or
Your old
So-
boss is the ambassador of Ireland?
Yeah, he just got appointed.
Nominated him.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. I saw that in the news. But yeah, with that being said, we don't know. Alex thinks it's interdimensional beings,
That's usually my go-to. Yeah. Yeah.
but that's not to say I really do think, like with Brian Bowden and a few other folks, like he does CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So they're actually doing activities that are trying to communicate with interdimensional beings and UFOs. So kind of a unique and cool experience.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I think
say.
he's going to be up here again because he lives in Florida, but he said he's going to come up and about to do exercise. So, we'll let you know if you want to
me
come
know.
along.
I'm still a little shocked that you said we'd be scared what the moon is. It's not made out of cheese.
Well,
I don't think so.
it's
Cheese.
if we go with
As
the
far as
Harry
I know.
Carey Saturday Night Live, yeah. Would you eat it?
Cubs win. Cubs win.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I mean, that's
That was a classic.
I think his Harry Carey was very close to his Charles Nestle Riley.
It was.
He had the sort of, the big glasses on. He was like, so you're too young to remember any of this. That's all right. I'm giving you pearls here.
I have a, speaking of pearls.
yes,
somebody
you in the
said
back, go.
Pearls, because I had a question since you're my conspiracy guys.
Mhm.
Do you believe in mermaids?
Yes.
Which kind of mermaids?
Not sirens, mermaids. And are they nice?
No,
They're not nice.
I don't think so. Mm-mm. I'm more of like the Rusalka sort of mermaid.
I don't
Like-
know.
like
I know the
draws
Ariel
you-
kind of mermaid.
Draws you in. Well, like the
So
sirens.
it's like a
yeah,
siren.
More like the siren types, yeah.
So the scary ones. The ones with
the ones who are
sharp teeth that
like-
lure you in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are
Break you
your
out on the
thoughts on
rocks and stuff.
I love the idea of it because I love the ocean myself. I always joke
Mhm.
I'm a half mermaid, but
You
I-
hear, folks.
it? Well,
I-
it depends on how many juicy tits you have, right?
True. There was a Animal Planet special, and it was a documentary.
She was the default, I think.
It's a fake
I meant the
documentary.
drink.
Oh, I think. Okay, fair enough. I apologize, Lauren.
You're
Go on.
okay. It was a fake documentary about mermaids, but it was all
Mhm.
CGI. They made it seem so real. The whole case they made about monkeys evolving and going into the sea and ultimately evolving, fins to adapt. It was so believable. And I
Mhm.
was so adamant mermaids were real, mermaids were real.
Sure.
And I've always just had a feeling like they're there. Why wouldn't they be? But no evidence other than history and fishermen and art. And are they lost at sea, looking at the sea, yearning for women at home? It's fascinating in terms of
It is.
are there really?
Well, and to that point, it's interesting because when you look at historical texts, obviously there's mythological creatures, but what's to say they were mythological?
Exactly.
Clearly, I mean, even the Bible, David and Goliath, right? You had giants. And what happened to the giants? They supposedly found bones all over the world. And was it the Anunnaki? Was it somebody else? Who knows? But
Ooh.
the thing is, it seems like history has been suppressed.
Mhm.
There's a narrative that they're obviously just perpetuating and they're telling us what they want to tell us.
Mhm.
But when you really look at the history of the world, I don't think it is not what it seems like it is. And
Right.
we've had some fantastic conversations like with Scott Walter, Tim Hogan. We've gotten into this because there's definitely a lot of history that hasn't been presented properly.
Yeah.
And the question is, why are they controlling that narrative? And like you were alluding to before, what I think is interesting is whether you love it, hate it, whatever else. I mean, we're not getting into, which side of the coin you're on,
Right.
but you look at Doji right now, and even with USAID, they were saying people are noticing there's not chemtrails in the sky anymore.
Mhm.
So it's like you're looking around, it's like, wait, where'd all the chemtrails go?
Mhm.
Because they cut off the funding. And then, it came
Now,
out that
what's the deal with chemtrails? I'm lost on that. Because you're not the first one to bring this up.
You're-
I have another buddy of mine.
You
who was-
familiar with them or no?
Well, I'm familiar with seeing them in the sky, but I
Right.
wasn't sure of their significance. So I wasn't sure.
Combination of things from my understanding.
Go ahead.
Weather manipulation, they're spraying chemicals, heavy metals that get into the air, into the water, into the food.
Yeah, and in terms of the weather manipulation, supposedly they're trying to block the sunlight because they're concerned about global warming.
And I've seen that they're going to try and turn the sun off or something crazy.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Good luck with
because
that
that
one.
sounds
They're
like
gonna
a
turn
great
the sun off.
Well, because what they wanted to do is obstruct the sun through cloud cover. So it actually lower the temperature of the Earth globally. But in doing so, it's kind of like, aren't you guys going to maybe facilitate another ice age accidentally?
Well, so
mean-
I saw this whole thing of they took core samples, right?
Mhm.
And they saw at different places at different times how warm the Earth was or how cool it was.
Mhm.
And from the time that they started recording beginning of history of weather, let's put it that way, which was like the early 1800s and mid 1800s.
Right.
That was what they called the mini ice age. So that was actually one of the coldest periods since the actual ice age for 10,000 years.
Yeah,
So-
actually around the Revolutionary War, there was a mini ice age.
Yeah. So moving up from there, it's like already we're not that far removed from that. So we're nowhere near the top echelon of heat that the world experienced.
During the dinosaurs, for example.
Well, even since the last ice age,
Right.
there were other much higher levels of temperature in terms of what was there. So
I always say you watch one nature show, one Planet Earth, one episode of, David Attenborough narrating something.
he's a good
The,
man.
when the
Yeah.
world is created in such perfect balance. It is so perfectly created. So to think that us interfering or us trying to adjust or manipulate something, I think it's they're barking up the wrong tree, so to speak, because
Agreed.
you're messing with a monster that's as old as we've been a planet. And it's always going to win. It's always gonna I always say it's gonna wipe us out first before we do anything to it.
True.
Probably.
And then
And-
echoing back real quick to the sun, the other interesting thing, again, looking back in history, people worship the sun, right?
Right.
People even, in the last 50, 60 years didn't wear sunblock.
Right.
And now they're saying the sun's bad, put sunblock on. Sun's bad for your eyes, don't look at it. There are studies that show if you go out in the early sunlight and sit there and shut your eyes for a short amount of time, it's re-energizing, it's grounding, it's so
yeah.
good for you in so many different ways. So I think it's also part of the more, kind of dark narrative
Right.
against us right now, so to speak, of saying that the things that are good are actually bad, the sun being one of them.
Absolutely. And that's the funny part. Like, we've been on carnivore diet since January 1st. I guess Alex has kind of derailed himself a little bit there. But
A little bit, but not too bad. No, I mean, yeah.
But they're sitting there telling you, don't eat steak, don't eat butter, don't eat eggs. It's like it's going to raise your
High
cholesterol.
cholesterol.
But yet, cholesterol is necessary for your brain function. And they actually said it'll block you from getting Alzheimer's.
Exactly. And that's a link that a lot of people don't know. And what used to be an acceptable, if not good cholesterol level, is now deemed a bad cholesterol level.
Right.
So it's all the narrative of whatever they want to manipulate to
Sure.
keep you sick. And then
Ditch out a statin or something.
Well, and
Yep.
it's just like breakfast. Like, obviously, they always said it's the most important meal of the day. No, it's not.
No.
It's like, and on top of that, you look at the fluoride in the water,
Yep.
you look at everything else. They're
Well, luckily in
obviously
New Jersey,
suppressing us.
there isn't fluoride in the water. Traditionally, at least, there's no. It's up to the towns whether they
Right.
want to put them.
Yeah.
There's no state mandated,
Mhm.
but other states there is.
And the dentist, I was just at the dentist. They asked, "Do you want flu?" I said, "No, thank you." And she's like, "I'll make a note. We'll get you next time."
Sure.
"Oh, you
We'll get you next
why
time.
not? And there's a study too.
And your little dog too.
There's a study about fluoride shutting down your pineal gland, which
Right.
is your third
Yes.
eye,
Yep.
and all your consciousness. So I think-
Calcifying it. Yeah.
Yep. So it's all of, again, these things that we've been told lies for a long time, but the world, I think, is waking up more and more. And I think that's a powerful shift.
Well, I think you look at, they're trying to still confirm RFK, but the fact you have a lifelong Democrat, that they're trying to make America healthy again. And not for nothing, but RFK is friggin' jacked. It's like for his age and
age, I
everything
know,
else. I
right.
mean,
How old is he anyway?
60 something.
yeah, I think he's around 70, right? It's like he's up there, but
That voice is just like
I know,
really
like-
good. Wow. That thing
Yeah.
is, like, gravelly.
it's a little gravelly, but I mean, he knows his shit. That's for
He
sure.
does.
And
Are we just gonna curse on this episode? Is that what we're doing? Fuck shit, son of a bitch, asshole.
Tits.
Jooicy Tits Vodka.
uh,
So with all that being said,
quiet down, Christian.
yeah, It really is a compelling argument. And to your point, I mean, that's something because we like to talk about, people on their spiritual journeys. We're trying to help individuals that are on that journey. And granted, maybe we're not the end all be all or the most knowledgeable individuals on earth about it, but that's part of what our show is about. And that grounding technique you're talking about, like even just getting up in the morning, going outside barefoot in the grass and you stare at the sun, that truly does change your energy. It helps you recharge. It helps you regenerate. And unfortunately, because we all wear shoes and everything else, that's lost in the world today too. It's pretty amazing how much we've suppressed all of these senses and suppressed ourselves from really understanding the universe. And like you were alluding to, everything's vibration, frequency, energy, right? And Alex just did a great lecture on quantum entanglement that we put up.
Thank you.
That's another interesting topic because with quantum entanglement, and you could talk about it a little further, but what's interesting is everybody thinks like the speed of light is that the fastest thing in the world. I was actually having a discussion with Eric Matson the other day, and Eric's like, what's faster than the speed of light? I'm like, is it your tachyons or whatever, theoretical particles or whatever? He's like, no, thought.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, wow.
I'm just like, I never even thought of that. And then it's like, wait, thought's faster than the speed of light? And then what's interesting is
Makes sense.
with quantum entanglement, do you care to elaborate on quantum entanglement for a second?
Well, so quantum entanglement is, let's say there's two particles, photons, or even, we could really work with any size particles, most likely, but something that was created at the same time. And then they're split out across the universe. So one's at one end of the universe, the other one's at the other end of the universe. What ends up happening is if one were to, at some point, take a quarter turn to the left, that same one on the other side of the universe would take a quarter turn to the right at the same time, irrespective of time and space, right? So that's, and then you're like, wait a second, there's no drag, there's no lag, there's no nothing. They literally occur at the same, so how does that happen, right? Unless there's various modalities of the way that things interact with the universe.
But it's no different than, for example, you're thinking about your long lost friend Jen, and then Jen calls you 15 minutes later.
Right, exactly.
That's, the power of thoughts. Like, it's an energy, it's a frequency. It's fascinating.
I agree.
Yeah.
And twin speak has always been interesting to me. I have a lot of twin friends, and the fact that they're connected in such a way is
my niece
so
and nephew are twins, and they have uncanny ways of connecting with each other. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So the question is, and what I sort of posit in this talk that I do is you take the modality of the two things interacting, which means they're always connected. And then we do like what we do in Masonic lodges, or really any organization. You could do it in the Catholic Church. You could do it in whatever, a civic organization. You're on that same vibe. So then how does that vibe and what you do where you are, if you take it seriously, how does that then start to affect the world, right? Because you're all pumping out that same idea.
I think it's as simple as when they say you're kind to a person, you smile or you give a compliment, or you buy a cup of coffee. That has a ripple effect then of positivity, or vice versa. If you're negative, you flip someone off, road rage, it's a negative ripple because then the other person's pissed off and maybe sets off, a negative ripple. But I think very much so that effect of an interaction then has an effect. A drop in the ocean, so to speak.
Road rage, that never happens in New Jersey. Everybody's so pleasant and so nice on the road.
Absolutely. We had the green truck follow us for like a state when we were driving down to AC, driving down to DC, myself and Danny, who hopefully will be on the show, is another brother of ours. He's an architect, and I want to talk to him. We're going to talk to him about sacred geometry,
awesome.
How that relates to architecture and everything like that.
Giants as well apparently used to construct some
you're talking about the Nephilim and the pyramids? That's a thing, maybe.
So
it'll be a thing.
That's an interesting topic because we've had some guests on that. You look at the Younger Dryas, which is about 13,000 years ago, is the Great Flood potentially, right? But then some of our guests posit that civilization's a lot older than what we've been led to believe. Posit. gotta pause it with the Jooicy Tits. But with that being said,
Don't pause it. Hit play. Go ahead.
no, like
I know that's terrible.
Eric actually thinks, and granted, who knows if this is true, like there's the Ica river stones that they found in Peru where, there was carvings with dinosaurs, people riding dinosaurs essentially. And, there was also in Texas, they found that footprint where it looked like there was a man's footprint next to like a dinosaur footprint.
I wish. I want to pet dinosaur. I want to pet T-Rex.
You do?
Hell yeah.
That would be a little.
And then I'll get a velociraptor after.
Well, they claim
So if that one doesn't eat you, the other one for sure will.
We'll feed them.
But supposedly the velociraptors were much smaller than they made them out to be in Jurassic Park. Like,
Are they?
From what I understood, apparently they're more like the size of chickens.
Chickens, and they're feathered like chickens.
Right. It's like they're not actually big like they made in Jurassic Park. Now, I mean,
haven't they found any of their big nails?
But you know,
but listen, you saw what happened to Newman when he got him with that thing that went.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the velociraptor.
He was asking for it.
He was asking.
It was annoying. I would have eaten it.
He's a shady dude, Newman.
And that damn screensaver that they had. But no, you could always try to give the T-Rex a hug, or tell it to make the bed or whatever. It's like I always love that meme. It's just like you think you're having
a marriage argument, but the T-Rex made. That's not good.
No, I was going to say the T-Rex making the bed. And it's just like
his arms.
Or pay the bill.
Right.
Anything.
Exactly. But there's all those memes. It's just like, if you're having a bad day, just think about a T-Rex trying to make its bed. It's just like, yeah. So anyways, no, but with all that being said, the universe, everybody thought it was 13 billion years old. It's actually 27 billion years old. So it's
Where'd you get that from? Billy Carson?
Yeah, there's some information out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even Eric said that.
27 billion.
They said it's 27 billion years old. And then when you look at the Great Attractor and the Great Detractor, it doesn't make any sense with the Big Bang Theory, right? So, there's a lot of...
But the Great Attractor could be that black hole at the center of the galaxy.
What about the outer space actually being in the ocean theory?
Outer space being in the ocean. That's a new one on me. Go ahead.
On that?
No, I just know it's a theory that's out there, and I think it's pretty cool. And I always say that the deeper you get, the more and more the fish look alien-esque.
That's
you got the
true.
disco fish, the weird ones.
Are
One
you
just
making
came.
a firmament argument?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, so don't take it's what I see on social media.
Space is an ocean. All right.
No, outer space is in the ocean.
Outer space. So space is the sky, and spaceships are actually like airlines. You can travel between the planets. You gotta love Reddit.
Yeah.
Space is a highway. Space is a highway.
I haven't heard that
I
version.
wanna ride it all night long. All right. Well, so I don't know. Do you know about this?
You gotta look into it. I want to.
You know what? We're gonna
Sit there
research
quietly
that.
in your quasi purple bow tie.
So we'll have you back on the show after we research it, and
Perfect.
Yes.
we'll talk about and we won't have Alex sing about life being a highway.
But be so lucky.
But with all that being said, I don't know. It's truly interesting and fascinating because getting back to like your mermaids, like they claim, unicorns, things of that nature. It's like, did they actually exist? Because even dragons,
Right.
they said up until, what was it, like the late 1800s, early 1900s, dragons were actually depicted in encyclopedias and other places.
Mhm.
So, it's like, well, how come they just all of a sudden were removed?
Right.
And you kind of start questioning. It's just like, well, what else is out there? And why did Constantine remove 14 books from the Bible? And like, what's in the Vatican archives? That's what I really want to know.
Yeah. What do you think is there? Do you think the secrets of some of what we're speaking to are there?
I believe so in a major way, because if you read Brian Mordescu's Immortality Key, I don't know if you're familiar with that book, great book. It started my whole recent process in sort of delving into these rabbit holes. He went to the Vatican Secret Archives, and he went to the archives of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which is the new name for the Holy Inquisition. which never went away. They just changed the name.
And
And so the idea is that those archives are not good. The indexing is bad because they were never meant to be archives. They were meant to be a deep, dark hole that they throw stuff into and forget about it. So finding things in the archives is not easy because the stuff doesn't correlate or it's been moved and, all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
not to cut you off, who has access to the archives?
Well, anyone who has the right to, in other words, you can, the librarian and whatever, there's the regular archives, there's secret archives, quote unquote, which is like restricted. Not really secret. I mean, people know about them. And then there's the Doctrine of the Faith archives, which have their own library, at least as far as this book goes. And what Brian found out in the book was that like a lot of the people who are librarians these days are a new generation of people. They have no idea what's even in there, right? So they have access to it, but they don't know what's in it.
So how do they become librarians? If
Well, they
don't
just
even
become
really know?
they become librarians. They're the custodians of the books, but they don't research in there. It's just like, all right, I was told to sit at the mouth of this cave and not let anybody in. I don't know what's in the cave,
Mhm.
right? So, it's that kind of a thing. So, they were as interested and into it as what do you call it? They were as interested and into it as he was, because they're like, well, we don't know what's in here either, right? And the little that maybe out of their own curiosity they were able to research, they either couldn't find things or the things weren't where they should have been. And once that happens, it's probably next to impossible to find. I mean, the place is huge and there's probably miles of books and other things that are in there, among other. I don't think it's just books. I think it's all kinds of artifacts and other things like
My
that.
understanding too was, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you could only take out like 3 items. Like if you're part of the clergy or whoever, you get access to it. They allow you to take 3 items total. Like that's all you're ever allowed to actually look at. I could be wrong, but I think I read that or saw that somewhere.
I don't think that was his experience, but
I don't think it was his experience, but I'm
sure.
just talking about as a generalization. So the question becomes like, and at this point, why haven't they digitized everything? Like obviously,
well, I mean, I think the whole point is they don't want, the whole thing with the Mayan calendar, for instance, and everything else that they were able to find, all of that stuff, they pulled away all of the Mayan calendar stuff because they didn't want anybody finding it, right? So the truth is, only recently did they figure out a way to reinterpret the Mayan language, which was forever lost in terms of it was just a lost language. But now only recently is like, oh, well, we can put a couple things together and say that, the Mayan language was on some level preserved and it was left for us to then discover. Yeah, okay. But now that we've been able to find a bunch of other stuff there, it really helps us to kind of put 1 and 2 and 3 together. So, yeah.
Right. But then you get into the discussion like the Talpiot tomb.
Huh.
There's some other thing, like I'm Roman Catholic. So, obviously it's probably even sacrilege according to the church talking about this, but they claim in the Talpiot tomb, right? They found the bones of Jesus. They found Mary Magdalene. They found the kids of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Supposedly there's a whole lineage of, I think they said Mary Magdalene was married to John the Baptist first. And then, from there, they even said, and granted, who knows if this is true or not, but like Tim Hogan alluded to the fact that it sounded like Jesus actually went to Egypt and was initiated, or at least, like Mary Magdalene was a high priestess and went to Egypt and had some initiation or ceremony. So, if that's truly the case, that really changes a lot of religion and clearly a lot of people's beliefs. I'm not saying I don't know for sure if there's any credibility there, but, it makes you start thinking about it. It's just like, well, and there's so many instances and, you look at different philosophies, different religions, they all have the flood story. They all have a death and resurrection story. It's not like this is just Jesus and it's whether it's Muslims, it's what, like the Egyptians, the Greeks, like you look across the board, that death and rebirth and, or death and resurrection, there's definitely other stories out there where that's been, portrayed several times.
Agreed. How do you feel about the Talpiot tombs idea? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not too familiar with it, but just what you're speaking to now, I think it's one of the things that we're never, ever really going to know. And I think it's, when it comes to faith, whatever it is that gives you peace or helps you get through this human existence, I think is what works. But I think we're not going to know. It's stories, and we don't know. I see what you're saying in terms of parallels across so many religions. But was it an agreement? Was it the powers that be at the time? Was it the narrative that they wanted? Just like the narrative there is nowadays, we don't know. And I think that's where it comes down to, your personal belief and, how you see the world, what you want to believe.
Yeah, and it's funny because you even look at like ancient Egypt. What were you taught in school about the pyramids?
But they built them.
Right.
They're buried.
But what were they used for?
They're buried. And
Right. The pharaohs
were buried.
burial
Yeah,
chambers.
except they've never actually found hieroglyphs in the pyramids. They've never found a body in the pyramids. So it's just like, well, wait a minute.
Something's not it.
And they're all built on top of an aquifer. It's like there was obviously a gold cap on top that since went missing, which somebody made out pretty well there.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like, especially with the gold prices nowadays. But, with all that being said, it looks like they were actually power plants. And then when you look at the Ark of the Covenant, and, we got into discussions like that where they think the Ark of the Covenant was actually possibly like a portable generator that was nuclear. Because they talk about how they wore armor, like lead armor, to protect themselves from it. And like Aaron's rod, and how you actually had to kind of, not demagnetize, what would be the word?
Almost like depolarized?
Right, because they're literally, you'd have to put like a wooden rod against it just so you could open the cover of it. Because otherwise, it would just electrocute you. And
you'd have to
people.
basically ground it. Yeah,
Right.
in essence,
Yeah.
right.
So it was like a grounding rod, exactly.
Mhm.
That's what I was trying to say.
You got there.
Eventually. It's all that vodka,
Yeah, I know she's not drinking. She's trying to get us drunk.
I drink all the time. I'll have some with you.
We still have like 90% of the bottle.
Yeah, so the idea that
Just do it straight up. It's fine. Thank you.
they said that Jesus had to have been married because any rabbi or any person that attained the
Thank you.
rank of rabbi would have had to have been married in order to be considered a rabbi at the time. Number one. Number two, it was culturally appropriate that if your brother or somebody very close to you died, that you would marry his wife so you could take care of his family.
Okay.
With some side benefits there, obviously. Hey, how you doing? So, there's that kind of a thing. And then the idea that, tombs of that time, these were in keeping with tombs of that time. The idea of the name of Jesus, Yeshua. If I'm being honest, that sounds much more like Joshua to me than it does Jesus.
It does.
True.
In that sense. So that again breathes, but apparently that wasn't that common a name at the time. So
Someone was a rule breaker.
Yeah.
The day.
This is-
Trendsetter.
this was all, this was all Scott Walder's ideas, but they're interesting, certainly to contemplate at the very least. Well, the other thing he said was that the Templars actually had a secret mission, which wasn't to take care of pilgrims in the Holy Land, but it was to go there and uncover sacred relics and stuff that were lost to time over that time period. So,
Which that brings up the Notre Dame fire, some other stuff, right? I don't know if you've heard that,
A
but
recent note.
yeah,
so what Tim Hogan stated was Notre Dame, those fires were actually set intentionally. And the reason for it was because there was relics buried under the floor from the Templars that they wanted to recover.
Okay.
But you can't just dig up a historic or World Heritage sites, things of that nature. So by setting it ablaze accidentally,
Little Jewish lightning.
yeah, you're then
Maybe.
able to close it off to the public and renovate and do whatever you need to, right? So, and I forgot the other site, but he said there was actually a bunch of other fires at, former Templar churches and sites at the same time.
Oh, he said
Even
the Templar stables went ablaze at the same time as Notre Dame did.
Right.
And it was also around the same time as a couple of other church fires that occurred. So
Did they recover any relics or no? We don't know.
we don't know.
We don't
Never know.
We don't know.
But the interesting thing, he also talked about, was it Cappadocia or where were they? He was talking about how, I want to say it was in Turkey or somewhere, where they heard like a jackhammer next to like a hotel. And it turned out that it was actually the Catholic Church trying to get into a Templar vault. And, I
See,
guess
that's where I got to part company with
Yeah.
Tim sometimes. I mean, as much as we love him
we
on
love
the
him,
show,
but-
he's a wonderful guy. He's like, some of the theories are a little like, Tim, I don't know, man.
Little
I
bit of
really-
reach
I really
sometimes.
want to believe, but I'm like right there, but not really. Yeah. So, my natural skepticism sometimes I don't know. Are you religious?
I
your
would say
personal-
more spiritual. than
Spiritual?
religious.
What do you believe in spiritually?
The universe. I believe in God, but I think in terms of
He believes in you.
thank you. I believe more at law of attraction. I love energy, home. Good vibes, positive thoughts. And being powerful. I believe in all of that, and I love the spirituality of how everything's connected. And I think a lot of people that are not spiritual or not religious don't necessarily see or feel that. So I think I'm a little too empathetic sometimes, if that makes sense. A little too in tune with
With the vibes.
the vibes and the world and animal. I get sad sometimes when they cut down trees. Why?
Did you ever go to
Oh.
Sedona?
makes sense.
So we were walking around Sedona, not Dave and I, but my buddy and I. And
Holding hands,
and we were at Bell Rock, which is one of the vortices of the vortex sites out there. And I was like barely standing on my feet. It was so much energy that was overwhelming. And this couple walked like right through, and they're like, la 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 la. What do you want for dinner, honey? Oh, I don't know. And it's like could not have cared less. Like
Right.
it's just we're not open to the energetics of it whatsoever. So I'm
Yep.
like, is this psychosomatic on my part? Am I just feeling what's not there, or are they just so closed off that they're just not feeling anything?
And I think it's
So-
also, I believe in, I believe you have a soul and it comes here to learn for this lifetime. So I think some people that are newer souls don't necessarily have as much of that connection, so to speak, that an old soul who's been here many times might.
Right. They're not in tune.
They're not in tune. They're
Yeah.
new. It's still
Yeah.
new. There's other lessons. They're not at that level, but not at that level to have that awareness, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, they're gonna have whatever they're gonna have in terms of experience.
Right. You'll see videos of little 2, 3, 4-year-olds that have such deep empathy at
Right.
such a young age. So it's obviously not something that's taught out the gate. It's innate. How is it innate? Why is it innate?
Right.
Is it in your makeup? Is it your being? Is it who you're meant to be? You don't know.
True.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think
Very interesting.
to that point, it's interesting because I don't know how you feel about it, but sometimes it's almost frustrating because, like, as you're alluding to, there's people that are just, I think because they're younger souls or they're not in tune to the universe, it's almost like you could feel that energy, you could feel the energy, but people that can't feel that energy, it's almost like frustrating to me when I see that because it's just like, how are you not recognizing this?
You not see
It's
it or
like-
feel it.
Yeah.
It's like right there. It's so obvious, but I think it's, since everybody's on their own journey, clearly, and they're at different stages, if you've been around the block a few times, but then that also, I don't know if you've seen recently, it was on Joe Rogan. We've also talked about it on our show. There was the individual that he shined a laser on the wall and smoked DMT, right?
Okay.
And when he's looking at the wall, he sees what looks like the Matrix. So he had over 100 people come do the same exact thing. every one of them saw this matrix.
Okay.
So the question is, are we living in a simulation?
Might be.
And if we're living in a simulation, how does that tie into, being an old soul or not an old soul? Because it's just like, did we somehow come back multiple times? Because like, are we a computer that they just reset and they're just like, yeah, you're an asshole. You got to come back a few times.
Imagine.
Like, I don't know.
Exactly. But I think that's what makes it so interesting and is that we don't know. Like that's kind of the cool part.
Right.
That mystery of what happens after death. Are we really here right now? Why do we take this so seriously? Why do people take life so damn seriously sometimes?
Yeah,
true.
There's this life is but a dream.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
shaboop.
if you approach things with a little bit more lightness to it, right? Then there's a little bit less resistance, I think, in terms of people doing what they want to do or enjoying the life experience.
Yes.
Yeah. As they say, don't take life too seriously. You'll never make it out alive.
When you speak to the Matrix, is that the Matrix, the digital, the glitch that everyone saw? Or is it the Matrix of how we've been so conditioned to be stuck in a box, to think you need to have a 9 to 5, to think you need to go, work for someone else, to all these things that we've been told?
Right.
That the Matrix? Is that the construct that we're stuck in? And you think about it, I remember being younger and being forced to go to school, obviously, and knowing, number one, you're not going to apply half of this. And why can't I foster what I'm good at? I always thrived in the arts. I always thrived in art. I love just things that, later on down the line, they become what you're doing.
Right.
Meanwhile, I was terrible at math. Basic math, I understand. Business math, I understand. But when we were doing abstract, Johnny's flagpole to the triangle, I don't need to apply this. This is not going to be what I need. So to know at that end, you're working so hard, studying and still getting C's and D's and F's. That was my life with math, and feeling so awful.
Right.
But knowing now that you're old, like you were stuck in this, again, construct. Whereas if I had gone to an art school at whatever age, or an entrepreneurship program in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, who knows what level you'd be at.
Yeah, you could be running Gucci now. But
well, she may still.
That's true.
But did you ever go to a Waldorf school, or do you know about those?
No.
So this guy Steiner, forget his first name. Rudolf Steiner. He developed a couple of things. He was part of the that S thing, which is now Landmark.
Okay.
He sort of had that, but he also developed what's called Waldorf schools.
Okay.
So they're schools where the kids learn some things and write their own textbooks, and then learn from the textbooks that they themselves wrote. Which is very cool and very interesting. The Harvard program has, and a bunch of the other schools have, what's called the Harkness method, which is like everybody is around a table, and it's much more collaborative than this, classroom where you're talking at students for whatever lecture wise and everything. And Exeter and Andover and some of the better high schools that funnel into Harvard and all that stuff, they teach that same method. So you're learning that all along. So again, it's like, education is, some people get that, and some people get the Henry Ford, like, you're going to work on an assembly line education of like, ring, bell, move to other class, rings, bell, Pavlovian sort of response to what education is or might be.
Well, that's exactly it. They're programming people. Because if you think about it, it's like, they don't want you to think, they want you to just be a worker, right?
And that's
and
it.
It's interesting because when you look back on school, it's like, I would argue probably 95% of what you learned in school was useless. And, it's not to say like, sure, history might have been fun or whatever you're interested in, but like, when's the last time you had to use the Pythagorean theorem, or like, you're sitting there, especially nowadays with all our advanced technology, you go on Chat GPT or whatever. It's like, you don't even have to think for yourself anymore. It's just like, hey, how do I do this calculation? What's this percentage or whatever else? It's like, you don't need to actually do anything anymore.
Well, it's sad. You'll go to the store and something's 10% off, and they can't calculate 10% off.
Yeah.
That's when it's sad.
You know what I love?
Such real time math that you should know.
But I love when you hand a cashier, like they're sitting there and you give them like, a couple of dollars, then you're just like, oh, here's 2 pennies. Right, and they're just like, It's just like, you can give me $1 back now. And there's just,
wild.
it's like mind blowing because they can't figure that out. And it's just like, wow. But that's also because people are just charging, 97 cents or whatever on their card. So it's, it's crazy. But when you think about it, but I do think, that's where it's really, truly interesting. Because even when you look at, like, we always talk about Nikola Tesla as a great example. Tesla, the guy was obviously not only a genius, but I think he tapped into the higher realms and he was able to communicate with outside of this world. And it's interesting because he didn't play the game. So you look at like Thomas Edison's kind of more famous, right, with his inventions and such, but Edison perpetuated direct current, which obviously you're only using in certain applications, like, an elevator as an example, where you have a motor on site. But it's like alternating current was Tesla. Tesla built the Wardenclyffe Tower. He figured out energy's free. But yet we're still all paying our damn electric bill every month. But like Eric Mattson was talking about, they found copper rods or copper grounding plates all around Egypt because they knew you could just literally put like kind of antennas up on your roof and you could harvest the energy from the atmosphere. So,
well, that and plus the way that the quartz and the rocks of the so they had what was it called? The it's basically a static electric power.
No, dielectric or
no, it's something with a P. But anyway, it has to do with the fact that
plutonium.
When you take quartz and you put it under pressure, piezoelectric. That's what it was. It's you put quartz under pressure, which you would do when you stack the rocks the way that you do for a pyramid. So they're under this sustained pressure. That static electricity of the pressure on the crystals because of the quartz inside it produces electricity. So through that pyramidion, they would shoot the electricity into the ionosphere, and then you would. So technically, all that electricity would probably still be rolling around the ionosphere because it's neither created nor destroyed. So it's just, as long as it's not being harnessed, it's going to stay there.
That why you get shocked when you walk across your carpet with certain socks sometimes?
Exactly.
That must be it.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's all that Egyptian electricity that'll get you right to your house in Sheboygan.
Yeah, and that's exactly how the lighters work.
What fighters?
Lighters.
The lighters?
like Barton.
Vodka.
Have a little vodka, would you?
Joey Baklava.
Oh boy, here we go.
No, I'm not quite there. I'm probably about
Joey
this much
Baklava.
more of the bottle. Joey
And I
Baklava, I'll be
invented
back.
Johnny Cannoli, but that didn't go anywhere.
I have a character named Miss Lynn, but
Miss Lynn?
yeah, we'll keep her tucked away.
Oh, tell me all about Miss. What happens with Miss Lynn? When does she
Miss
come
Lynn
out?
come
What does she
out?
do?
Miss Lynn was a joke back in college because I managed the men's lacrosse team for fun. We were away on spring break, and the trainer and I shared a room and were bored like the second or third night. We crushed a bottle of wine, and we were like, who can we prank phone call? And so she's like, I love everyone. This is not to be taken out of context. It was just what you're able to do, accent wise. So she said, I make fun of the kids that play basketball in the parking lot with this boy named Brian Hess. And so I said, oh my God, I can do an Asian accent. So we start calling all different rooms as this character. And the next day, half the team's like, wait, did anyone get a call from like an Asian lady last night? And we were just going through the stereotypes of just funny, use your imagination. So by the end of the third night making these phone calls, the coaches know about it. They come into our room to listen to the now last version that we recorded. And it's absolutely hilarious because this kid Hess rolled with the interaction with Miss Lynn to such a point. It was this banter back and forth. And it was basically Miss Lynn was going to go give him a massage and what room he was in, wrong room. And I do the accent, and they ended up recording it, and they played it on the bus, on the speaker, driving, and everyone was in stitches, dying laughing because it's funny. It was all in good fun.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, nice and light.
Miss Lynn, love you a long time.
Miss Lynn, love you a long time. And it's honestly, it's funny how small the world is because the trainer is good friends with friends that I have here at Bellworks, and once they were playing golf, and the guy goes, "Yo, so I heard about a little character named Miss Lynn." We ended up playing the rest of the round in accents. It was so funny, so funny.
That's awesome.
So one day we'll have to break all of our alter ego characters out.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure we have a couple hours and we're not driving.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely.
And then Joey Baklava will come out in full force.
Oh boy.
Except we're probably going to need another bottle.
That's fine. We can do that.
Yeah.
I might know a person.
We know a person. Who knows a person?
She might know a guy or a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that being said, I think it's kind of funny how alternate egos come out when people are drinking, right? And that's another interesting concept. It's like, you notice like some people are angry drunks, some people are happy drunks. It's just like, you kind of wonder, why is it that, some people are super angry when they're drinking? It's like,
what brings out certain things in you. But so let's talk about that. So you mentioned before how some things like psychedelics may have been not brought to the fore, not encouraged in the past, right? But record a pod.
So Christian just recommended we record a podcast as the alter ego.
Yes.
I like that.
I think that would be, I'm going to be Joey fucking Baklava. Then we'll have a good time.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'll get back to it.
But
Sorry.
so let me ask, obviously you are advocating the use of alcohol and you're selling the use of alcohol, but alcohol is it's a way to, well, all except for tequila, which apparently is a stimulant.
That's a good one.
but it does sort of anesthetize the psychic potentially.
I think it depends on the person. I was
Potentially.
just talking to a woman who's medium, and she was an addict, and she said when she was at the height of her addiction was when she was the most connected to the spirit realm, so to speak. So I think it depends on the person, but I think your average person, just in terms of talking to a lot of people, bars and out drinking all the time and whatnot, it's what is either their ritual or part of what relaxes them. So some people, they go home and smoke a joint. Other people, they go home and drink 2 bottles of wine. But it's something to take the edge of the human experience off, because it's your average person's stressed, your average person's unhappy, and I think it's a way to dull not the pain necessarily, but just dull things, shut the brain off for a little bit.
Do you know what she was addicted to?
I believe it was drugs. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I just mean
Drugs and alcohol. I don't
what
know
kind of
specifics.
Yeah. Because I'm kind of curious, because I've always heard that certain drugs could obviously open you up to more paranormal realms, and there's certain modalities you should probably implement prior to doing them just to protect yourself. Now, I can't speak from experience because I haven't tried it or sampled it, but sounds like especially ayahuasca and some other psychedelics sound like they're pretty not only mind altering, but life altering. We had Nestor Ramirez on. That was our second episode. Nestor, actually, funny enough, he's usually at the market selling coffee over here.
Yeah. Which days is that usually the case? It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that's,
But Nestor was telling us, when he went down to Colombia to do an ayahuasca trip, and he said it literally blew his mind and changed his life. He said when he was done, he apologized to everything he ever did wrong in life, and it changed him so much as a person. And I've heard a lot of people say that. They're just like, you want to level set, reset yourself, go do that. But
or this thing I'm about to do tomorrow, which is if you're there for 10 days, you're going to level set back to,
right.
Like Freddie said that it took him back to being 18 years old again, where it cleaned away all of the,
yes,
a lot of the adult.
So it's actually,
a lot of the stuff
what's interesting with Freddie. So Freddie he's a medical doctor. He does a lot of,
he's a neuropsychiatrist.
He's a neuropsychiatrist, but he actually had a really just traumatic experience. He had a 6-year-old daughter that died, and he couldn't come to grips with it because he's a doctor, and he's just like, how did I not help my daughter? She had epilepsy. His previous wife blamed him for it.
Yeah, it was horrible.
He said he was essentially trying to kill himself.
Yeah.
And the interesting aspect to this is he was in, I think, Hawaii at the time, right?
Right, correct.
And he's he went out in the water and he said there was, I think, like 6 people that drowned the day. And he said he kept going out and he was just trying to drown.
There's a beach that's notorious for it.
Mm.
And it actually has signs all over.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he was at that beach in particular, but he went out and he said every time he'd go out, he was just like, all right, take me. And the waves just kept throwing him back on the shore.
Not his time.
And he's just like, you know, he was cursing and he's just like, what the hell? And then he said he got thrown onto the beach and this lady was there and she's just like, hey, you want to come to a party later? And he's just like, okay.
Cool.
And he went to this party. She gave him some magic mushrooms and chocolate, like edibles. He said he took it. He said it literally changed his life because he said at that point, it just brought him into this state of mind where he was just like, you know what, I can come to terms with my daughter dying. And then he told the whole story. He went to the cemetery and this butterfly literally came and landed on his ear and was just sitting there on his ear while he was walking around. And he knew that was his daughter.
It's amazing.
And he
Gives me
said
chills.
at that point,
I know, right? I feel the same. Yeah,
at that
it's crazy.
stage, he finally came to grips in terms with everything. And then from there, he said he realized he had a higher purpose and a higher calling. And, yeah, he accepted his daughter's death and everything else. And then apparently he said, you know, his daughter told him don't eat pork or whatever else. So he stopped eating bacon, which can't imagine. But, hey, whatever works for people. Especially being on carnivore diet.
A lot of that.
Bacon's a big piece.
Because my buddy who's studying to be a shaman now, he's like a 6'5", 6'6" guy out of northern Michigan.
Mhm.
He's like the whitest white man ever, and he's down in the Amazon, with the Shipibos, studying how to be a shaman, like learning their songs and language and everything.
Does he wear sunscreen or is he just
I
beat
assume
red every
he's
day?
gonna need it probably, but he is very interesting. But once you start doing dietas with certain plants, you're not supposed to eat pork anymore. And it's so interesting that so many religions, both that and Freddie, you know, all this stuff, so like, stay away from pork. Pork is not, because apparently it's very close to human.
Right.
So, you know, you shouldn't be eating
Which I think that's
human
why,
either, probably.
because can't they use, I think they could use pig hearts for human
They can,
transplants, right?
yes.
So
The
maybe
bowel.
that's why.
Yes.
But yeah, Freddie said he stopped eating pork after that. And he actually did our brain scans and everything. He's just like, yeah, you guys are, he told me like I had a traumatic brain injury. I was like, probably from falling out of the pickup truck bed and slamming my head on concrete, but
sounds about.
it's like, maybe that was probably a turning point.
Yeah, mine was probably football. But yeah.
I don't know.
I think though, speaking to, you know, his experience or other people in situations like that, I think so much of it is just knowing that the people you care about on the other side, or that you just want to know they're okay. Like,
Right.
know they're okay and that you're going to see them again, or then, you know, to have that communication of, for example, at the butterfly landing, and
Right.
people have signs of, you know, even open conversations. What are you going to come back as?
Yeah.
Just know you're okay.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because even like my father passed away a couple of years ago unexpectedly, and you know I still sometimes see him in dreams, and a lot of times, you know, it's a weird interaction because it's like there's been times where I can't actually talk to him, but he's there. Like I recently had a dream where he was across the street, and I was just kind of walking along with him, and he was just there, and I was looking at him, and I was just like, "Why don't you come over here?" And he's like, "I can't." And I was just like, oh, okay. And, you know, it's interesting because, yes, like when we talked to Eric in our last podcast, Eric's just like, what if all souls are harvested by these alien races and you're not actually going to be free? And he's like, what if you're a speck of dirt for 50,000 years after this? I was just like, well, that doesn't sound so bad. At least
we
it's
know.
relaxing.
Will we know? We have that consciousness?
That's what I said to him.
I don't think so. No, look, Eric was told some things at NASA at a certain moment in time.
Right.
He was asked to sign an NDA about it. He was an intern at the time. He probably shouldn't have even been in the room. But the truth is, he's only privy to the thing. It's not like he gets regular updates from NASA as far as like, oh, you know, we were wrong, or here's the latest update on more nonsense that now you again have to sign an NDA for or whatever. He was told what he was told,
Right.
and he's got nightmares about it. And he drinks a lot because he feels like that's his way to medicate and whatever. But the truth is, and Carl said the same thing about the moon, and like that it's worrisome and things like that. But these guys are seeing a part of the picture.
Right.
They're not seeing the whole picture. Only God sees the whole picture. So I choose to believe that, you know, as scary as whatever they may know that they're not going to say is, it's still not the entire picture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We had, I don't know if you've ever, maybe through circles, you've heard of him, but Paulo Santos.
Yeah.
So Paulo, you know, died during COVID, basically, right? And he was on the podcast and he told us his story about how he basically died and he went to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the first couple weeks, there was literally just a plaque on the wall that said, keep the thermostat between 68 and 72 degrees. And he's just like,
Well, that was the actual thermostat plaque that was on at the hospital
And that
where he was.
Oh,
right.
wow.
Because Paulo, what happened during COVID, he traveled to Washington, D.C., and this was right at the onset of COVID in March 2020. So
Right.
he ended up, basically, was he at Jersey Shore Medical? I don't remember what hospital he was at, but anyway,
Something like that.
something like that. But he came back from Washington, D.C. He didn't feel well. His
Right.
wife was a nurse and said, listen, go to the basement quarantine. He couldn't breathe, so he went to the hospital because she told him, get to the ER immediately. He gets there, he realizes everybody dying. So he's like, I'm looking out the room and I just see body bags being piled up. And he's like, at that point, he starts making preparations because he's like, whatever people have, I have, and I'm probably going to die. So he said he ordered like a couple months worth of diapers for his kids and things of that nature, like wrote down all his passwords and gave it to his sister-in-law or brother-in-law, whoever
Right.
it was. So what was interesting is he said he was there, he flatlined, he was literally FaceTiming with his wife. And all of a sudden, next thing he knows, he wakes up like 3 weeks later, roughly.
Absolutely.
But what was crazy about it is he said when he died, he was still in the hospital room, but he saw the nurses and the doctors working on him. And he could actually hear the nurses in the back of the room saying like, hey, it's not his time. It's not his time. Don't take him. Don't take him. And he said this guy walks in and he figures it was an angel, but it was like a doctor. And he's like, am I dead? He said, yeah, you are. He's like, all right, what happens now? And then he said to him, well, I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to allow you to see whatever you want. So he said he watched his kids grow up. He watched his grandchildren grow up. He lived for like millennia, just seeing all these different alternate realities or whatever else. But then when the guy came back, he's like, all right, well, now you're going to hell. And he's like, I wasn't a bad person. But he's
He
like,
goes,
no, no.
everybody goes down.
He's like, everybody goes to hell. And then what I thought, like the most profound thing from all that, it's a truly interesting episode, but he actually said something that like still, I don't know why it just sticks with me, but he said, when you go to heaven, he's like, if you had to choose 5 people right now to go to heaven with, who would you choose and why? And would those 5 people choose you back? And I was just like,
What if they're already there?
well, that's true, but I'm just saying, you know, if like just even the people that you know right now,
Right.
it's like, would they choose you?
Right.
And I'm just like, what the hell?
That's heavy.
I'm like, would my
That's
dog
good.
choose me? It's like, hopefully, anyway.
Probably.
It's like, probably not, but you never know. But it was just like, geez. And to me, that was like just a profound thing because it's just like,
Right.
well, who would choose me? It's like, because I'm not saying like, I'm sure people would, but I
Right.
just mean, would I choose the same people?
Right.
And he was saying the only person that chose him was his wife.
Wow.
So he was in heaven just with his wife. And he said there were 3 layers of heaven. It's a really interesting show, you know, especially when he came
Let's
back
check
and
that one out.
tried
that
to,
one out.
he tried to, you know, escape from the hospital. That was
Oh yeah.
hysterical.
So when he got back out of hell and then he got to heaven and he came back out, he thought he had gone back to hell, and he was trying to figure out a way to test himself. So he kept trying to kill himself and then they put some remdesivir in him or something like that, and then he woke up out of the coma, but he was trying to use the small electrical charge from the bed to electrocute himself.
You know, like the little remote on the bed. It was like 3 watts or whatever. He's like, I'm sitting there trying to like electrocute myself.
And then he was like, then he thought that the people were demons outside, so he was trying to kill them with the freaking thing from the bed and everything else. So it was a whole thing. But then his wife called him, and it snapped him out of his psychosis, because then he goes, if I'm hearing her voice, I must really be back.
Right.
And it just woke him up to really, yeah. So it was really, because as much as he was in hell and all the stuff going on, he never interacted with his wife there. So,
but one thing I thought was funny was he said he was actually at home, you know, it was months or years later. And he said all of a sudden, like the shelf collapsed. And his wife's like, what the hell just happened? He's like, don't worry about that. That's just me. And he went back to sleep or whatever. And he said because he was trying to interact from the beyond with the physical world. Now, the interesting thing is, like Eric always says, there's anti-time, and time is not linear.
Right, exactly.
Right. So it's like, so I guess in
parallel universes.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, all right, so then we're dead somewhere along this timeline, and came back probably multiple times if you believe in reincarnation or whatever else. But yeah, it's pretty interesting when you start going down that rabbit hole. And especially, you know, with some of these, I guess, medicine journeys as you've been on. Can't speak from experience, but, you know, it sounds like, are we here for another purpose?
I think so. I think we've got a lot of purposes as to why we're here. And the MFer of it all is, I think you get to choose your purpose, which is a concept I'm not 100% comfortable with. It would be easier if God just told me like what the purpose is, and he's just like, go forth and do this. But it's just like, I don't know if the truth is you get to choose what your path is, or you get told what your path is.
Maybe after next week, you'll have some answers.
Well, hopefully. Maybe. That would be.
Or is it like History of the World X, where, you know, Moses walks out with the 3 tablets and drops one? It's like, I give you the 10 commandments. Mel Brooks.
I think you're putting American History X and History of the World.
Oh, History of the World. I mean, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
There's no skinhead.
It's the vodka talking. But
absolutely,
all good. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, I think this is as good a time as any to wrap up. I think this has been a fantastic show. And once again, we have Jooicy Tits Vodka. Oh, that's perfect on Dave.
Hey, look at
that.
Jazz hands.
There you go. So go out and get yourself some. Where is it available?
So if you live in Jersey, we have a nice footprint as far north as Westfield and Oakland area, as far south as Wildwood.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of spots in between. Ask at your local liquor stores and venues. That's a massive help to us. And then in Florida, we have an awesome footprint in Key West in particular.
Oh, Key West is fantastic.
Yep, nurture Key West a lot.
Yeah.
And then, as mentioned, we ship direct to consumer in 47 states. Jersey's not one of them, unfortunately. But
we have weird laws, I think.
Yeah, we do. If you're elsewhere in the country and looking to order some, ships right to your house.
Yeah, just go to JooicyTitsVodka.com.
Don't forget the vodka.
We'll definitely put the link in our description. And so, what's your favorite Key West bar?
Oh, that's a tough question. There was one called Hank's, which is a super dog-friendly bar.
Okay.
Do you have a dog?
I have 2. Oh, I love dogs. So it's a golden retriever. It's their little mascot. It's dog-friendly. There's pictures of dogs all over the place with names. It's just, it's cool. If you like dogs, it's a great spot. They do live music all a That's a great one.
Awesome.
There's a cool one called Tattoos and Scars, which is all kind of like biker bar-esque.
Sure.
Really great spot. Right next to it is a place called Shots and Giggles. And it's more of a local spot because it's off Duval Street.
Sure.
So if you don't, adventure off that beaten path, so to speak, you're not going to find it. But those who know about it know it's another awesome local spot. And then a shout out to the smallest bar. It's
I love that place.
The best. Hey Josh. Hey Charlie.
Yeah.
I've never been to Key West.
The world's smallest bar.
Do you like live music?
I do.
Do you like drinking?
I do.
All right. So you have two
you have 2 reasons to go.
It's beautiful in terms of the water. And if you like fishing or take a boat ride or a catamaran ride, something like that, it's great. The beaches are not so great, so it's not really a like post up on the beach for 5 days.
If you go to Fort Zachary Taylor State Park, there's a decent beach there. There's also what's the other one over? Smathers Beach. Yeah, but it's definitely.
Did you go to the lodge out there?
I never went to the lodge in Key West, but I've.
Eric said he went with his camper because a buddy of ours, he goes everywhere in his camper truck. And they actually put out an outside outlet for him to be able to plug in when he's there. So he just goes, when he travels, he doesn't stay at a hotel. He'll just go to the lodge and just camp out in their parking lot and just sleep there overnight or whatever. So, which is easy. He'll just let the people know that.
I can't say I went to the Masonic lodges in Key West or the Masonic lodge. It's like I was just there for, last time I was there for a bachelor party. So it was... It was a good time. It's like we started drinking at 6:05 a.m. after going out the night before, and that was actually a fun one. I should put up that video. It's like we were sitting there chanting, "No pasties, no panties, no cover."
That's the town for it.
Well, there was a guy literally yelling this on Duval Street. He was just like, "No pasties, no panties, no cover." So we were at what was that, Senor Frogs, or was it Carlos and Charlie's? Whatever the hell it is. It's like you get the yard glasses there. We're sitting there and it's like, I'll show you the video later, but maybe I'll post
Dave
it.
has the build in the Constitution for like a lot of like yard glasses and other things that you like Americans drink when they go places.
Yeah.
I'm just not built for that kind of thing.
I mean, this was a number of years ago now, but it was pretty damn funny. My uncle was even like, going to town on that. And then the best part was we went out on a fishing charter in the morning, like at 6 a.m. We rented a boat. We ended up taking home, I think it was like 42 fish. And then we were just like, what are we going to do with this?
Any hogfish in there?
No, it was mostly
popular to it's local fish. Weird looking. It's got like,
it was mostly,
it's good.
So we had grouper, snapper, we had yellowtail.
Those are both good.
And then,
all three are good.
Unfortunately, we didn't get any mahi, but we had a pretty good amount of fish. And we're just like, we called some local restaurants and they're just like, listen, it'll be like $50 a person if you want us to prepare. We're just like, F that. So we ended up going to Publix and literally bought, seasoning, and we went to Fort Zachary.
Grill it up yourself?
Yeah, we went to Fort Zachary Taylor State Park, grilled it up ourselves. We were dying because we were all drinking at 6 a.m. And the funniest thing is we got back to the hotel and like we were supposed to go out that night and we watched Mrs. Doubtfire and everybody passed out.
What's up again?
It was just like, hello. Yeah, it was just like, this is kind of pathetic actually, but it's fine.
It's like, early.
I remember my cousin called me because she was marrying Nick. And the funniest thing is she's like, where are you guys? We're like, we're in the hotel sleeping. She's like, wow, sounds like an epic party. We kept.
Yeah, I guess it's not.
It was a great time though.
Lindsay taking a thingy across state lines,
but God, yeah,
it's real good.
That was a whole other topic. Our friend almost got a Grand Theft Auto felony and things like. So he actually, at his bachelor party, they were in Vermont staying at Bacta, and they went over to New York State to play golf. It was right across the border. So I don't know who thought it was a great idea, but they were just like, dude, you should drive the golf cart back to the Bacta. So he drove the golf cart from the golf course back to Bacta. So he crossed from New York State into Vermont. And then they get there and they're just like, why do you have a golf cart? And he's just like, oh, they told me to bring it. They're just like, yeah. So they called the golf course. They're like, listen, we really apologize. It's like, well, bring it back. It's like the New York State Police, the Vermont State Police show up. They're just like, they realized they're like, oh, they thought I was like some punk kid or whatever. It's like, a 40-something-year-old guy that's on his bachelor party. They're just like, so they had him drive the thing back to the course. And then he went and like apologized to the owner. And the owner was just like, you're banned for life from here. He's just like, whatever. Right. He's like, I'm never going to play this course again in my life. So who cares?
Anyway.
Check the box.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Done.
So yeah, good times.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Thanks. You guys get tit-faced out there with Jooicy Tits Vodka.
Absolutely. Boom. There you go.
they don't want you to know this. The elites don't want you to know this. But you can eat butter like this. You don't have to spread it on anything. You can just eat it. Okay? Got it? Eat it. It's a well-kept secret.